So, this morning, as we always do, we're going to be just being led by the Spirit. So, I'm actually receiving a word for the body, and I don't know how it's going to flow into today's message. If we're going to even reach today's message, we will see. But I really feel that this is a pertinent word for the body this morning. To kind of share what the Lord was showing me this morning is everybody's got something going on. Everybody's got some type of a trouble, some type of issue, circumstance, situation, a deliverance needed, a healing needed, provision needed, something. And everyone is included. Amen. Everyone is going through pain, suffering, something, tribulations. And so the Lord wanted to remind us of what His Word says. All right? So with that in mind, this is what He told me this morning, is He wants us to listen to this Word with clarity and sincerity. With clarity and sincerity. Listen to what the Lord is saying. So turn with me to Romans 8. Again, it's not going to be up here. It has nothing to do with our message this morning. But go to Romans chapter 8. You know, they have a lot of core mazes going on right now. And when you find yourself in the middle of a core maze, you feel lost, don't you? The only thing you see is just walls on each side of you. And you see a path, but sometimes that path doesn't make sense. Sometimes it seems like you should be making a right when it looks like it should turn to left. And you just get lost. It's a time of confusion. And the Lord is showing us that right now, that's where most of us are, is in the middle of that core maze, trying to find our way out. We're trying to look above the hedges, and we can't see. So listen to what the Lord is saying. He's going to give us perspective from His angle. Romans 8, chapter 18, and this is what it says. Romans chapter 8, verse 18. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. So first and foremost, what we are suffering through right now is not even compared to be worthy of what's to come. And what happens is, what we're about to see is we get so focused on what's going on in our lives right now that we can't even see the glory that is coming for us. If, I don't want to go off the path, but just think about it this way. When you know something good is ahead, right? When you know without a shadow of doubt what is coming for us is God Almighty Himself, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. When you know that there is a time coming with no more pain, no more suffering, no more crying, why can we not be rejoicing over that right now? And the reason is because we're so focused on what's going on right now. And we're going to see what that means in just a moment. Verse 19. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of Him who subjected it in hope. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. Stop right there for a moment. Not only are we going to be delivered from that, but can I tell you, we will be delivered from everything that we're going through right now. All right? Again, whatever you're suffering from right now, just think, when you stand before God Himself, is any of this going to even matter? As a matter of fact, His Word says, come on now, His Word says what you are suffering through right now and what you are tormented with and what you're worrying about, you're not even going to be able to remember it when you stand before Him. Because remember, His Word actually says that when you stand before Him and when we enter in that, especially in the millennial reign, what it says is that you won't even remember the things of old. So the very thing that you're allowing to ruin your life right now is you're not going to have remembrance of that thing when you enter into glory. So why are we allowing it to ruin our lives now, right? Verse 22. For we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pains together until now. Not only that, but we also who have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. So what Paul is talking about is what's to come, the redemption of our body, the rapture, right? When we become incorruptible out of corruption, when we are no longer suffering and going through agony and all this and that. But this is where the Lord wants to show us this morning. Back at verse 22 and 23. For we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pains together until now. Not only that, but we also, who are the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. So this is what the Lord was showing me this morning. The pains that we're suffering right now, the birth pains, the things that Juliana right now is suffering from, right? He was sharing with me that we suffer with pain, with pressure, with inconvenience, with agonizing pain, and being uncomfortable. Am I kind of hitting the head, Jay? Okay, so all the above, right? This is what we all are suffering through spiritually right now, and poor Jay's going through it physically, right? But this is what he was showing, though, this morning. We are so focused on those birth pains. We're so focused on the pain that we cannot see what's to come. Again, the birth pains is not representing the trouble that you're experiencing right now. Let me say that again. This is going to be deep. But the birth pains that you are experiencing right now has nothing to do with the trouble that you're experiencing. The birth pains that you are experiencing right now is a sign of the miracle to come. What Jay is experiencing right now, it should not be, the birth pain should not be focused on her uncomfortableness, the agonizing pain, the pressure, inconvenience. That's not what that's a sign of. But what happens when we're in the middle of that situation, that is all we can think about. We can't even think about what's to come, right? But what God is showing us this morning is this. What it is a sign of, again, is that miracle to come. It should not be, let me see, I want to go ahead myself. Okay, come on, Spirit. Jay is about to give birth to a human being, right? But as she allows the trouble that she's feeling and experiencing right now to cause her to completely focus on that, she's going to completely forget why she's going through what she's going through. There it is. All right? She's going to forget why she's going through what she's going through. This time next week, we're saying that, well, actually, yes, this time next week, she will be holding a bubbly little boy. A miracle, right? But right now, she doesn't have that in her arms, and the only thing she can focus on is what she's experiencing right now. But what God is trying to tell us is this: we're all the same way. We're so focused on the trouble right now that we're actually forgetting about the deliverance to come. She's about to deliver a baby. We are about to be delivered by the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But we are going through such a time of turmoil right now, we can't even see that's coming because we're so focused on this right now. Why does that even make sense? Okay, you might as well just go ahead and put your handouts away. So why does this make... I'm just feeling it right now. Go to 1 Chronicles chapter 4. You see, I really feel that we, as a body, have been so focused on the times right now. We're so focused on the trouble that we're experiencing right now that what is going on is we cannot be excited for Christ who is coming for each and every one. We can't even get excited for that because we're so bound up by the turmoil, by the stress and the situations and circumstances that we're facing right now. But God wants us to take our focus off of that and put our perspective and focus back on what's more important. What Paul said, this current suffering is not even, don't even cause it to be worthy compared to what's to come. Don't even put your focus on that stuff because that's what the enemy wants you to do, is focus on the here and now, the trouble, and not even think about what's to come, and that's Jesus Christ. So why is all this important? 1 Chronicles chapter 4. Now, if we started at verse 1, I would lose most of us by verse 3 or 4. Because this is genealogies, and probably 3/4 of these names we can't pronounce. So what happens is, when things don't make sense to us, we flip the page. And when we flip the page, we miss something so vital and so important that God is like, oh, if you just pushed through a little bit more, you would have gotten a nugget. You would have gotten your breakthrough. But you tend to stop right beforehand, and then you turn the page, and then you can continue to suffer. But watch what happens. Go down to verse 8. Actually, go back to verse 7. Let's understand what God is saying. Verse 7. The sons of Helah were Zereth, Zohar, and Ethnan, and Koz begot Anub, Zebabah, and the families of Harel, the son of Haram. I probably horribly spoken those names, but we'll continue on. Look at verse 9. Now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me indeed, and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain. So God granted him what he requested. Chelub, the brother of Shanah, begot Bahar, who was the father of Ishtan. Do you see what happened there? God put a little nugget in the middle of all those genealogies to see how far you're willing to dig. To see how interested you are into learning all about him, his family, the kingdom of heaven, and everything he has for us. You see, what we would have missed is this. Again, what's your focus on? Is your focus on the birth pains? If your focus is on the birth pains, you're going to completely miss the miracle that's coming. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to begin to curse the very thing that's coming. You know, in today's time, we call that apostasy. Because what is going on, the word clearly says in the end times there's going to be a great falling away, which we call the apostasy. What is the apostasy? Is the departing from the faith. So what is the faith? The faith is the word of God, is it not? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. And what brings us to God is his word. Right? Now, we know the Holy Spirit draws us on it. What I'm saying, though, when you begin to read God's thoughts towards you, that he is wanting to give you a future and a hope, then you begin to like, wow, this is a God of relationship. It's nothing about religion, right? So now you get all excited about this God, and now you're wanting to spend some time with this God. But then all of a sudden, what happens? Turmoil begins to come forth, and tribulation, and heartache, and heartbreak, and all this and that. So what happens is you begin to focus more on that than what the truth of what his word says. And when you forget the truth of his word, then can I tell you, you will begin to forget who you are in him and who he is in you. You begin to feel like you are forsaken now by God. Like, Lord, you spoke these things. You told me to trust your word, and which are promises to me. But now I don't see these things coming to pass. So why should I continue to follow you? But what you forget is that in the beginning, God showed you everything about him. How many times when you first were saved, were blown away because then you could see God everywhere? When you first began to really dive deep in the Word, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to understand this. Why? Because the Spirit was revealing the truth to you. The giftings of the Spirit. You could see God working through you into other people's lives. You could see how he was bringing forth miracles after miracles after miracles. It was a honeymoon stage, wasn't it? You're like, wow, how can I have not ever seen God like this? But then all of a sudden, situations occur. And you don't hear God as well. You don't feel him as much as you did. You don't see him in your situations as much. You begin to look in the Word, and all of a sudden it begins to like, where do I even start, God? Then what happens to your faith? It starts to fall away, right? Because you get to see that in your life. How much do you pray now? How much are you getting in the Word now? How much are you coming to church now? Remember what the Lord revealed to us and warned us about a month ago. What season are we going into right now? And how easily is it for us to become offended? So we got to be careful about becoming offended, because the Lord warned us there's going to be a lot of events that will cause us to become offended. And he also said this is a season of what? Silence. Have we been obedient to that? Or are we still busting through the throne room and then just leaving? instead of sitting there in silence, hearing the heartbeat of God in your situations. Again, you will focus more on your birth pains than the miracle that is going to be birthed through you. Now watch this. Verse 9. Now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. And his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. Now, if you have the KJV, I think it says sorrow. I bore him in sorrow. Okay. So here is a mother that's given birth to a little boy, and she is so focused on the birth pains that guess what happens? When the child finally comes, she is still focused on the trouble that she went through. And she, as a matter of fact, calls her child by that very thing. You see, she was so focused on the pain that she endured to bring forth the child that she couldn't even see how blessed that child was going to be in her life. It says that Jabez was more honorable than all of his brethren. As a matter of fact, God blessed him. He enlarged his territory, right? But she looked at him as a curse. He is the one that brought me so much sorrow. He is the one that brought me so much pain. You see, there's so much in a name, guys. So much in a name. So when he grew up, well, what's your name? I'm Jabez. Well, your name means sorrow. It actually means to grieve or to be sorrowful is what his name is. How would you like to be known by that name simply because the person that birthed you, the person that you looked up to, looks down at you going, you caused me so much pain and suffering. For what? How much, AJ, how much did you actually suffer? Like all 9 months? How many months do you think you suffered? Like agonizing, crazy suffering. 7, maybe? 2. So 2 months she was suffering. 2 months. Now, like Jabez's mom, 2 months probably is what she suffered. Maybe a couple more, but 2 to 3 months we'll say is what she suffered. She allowed those 2 to 3 months to ruin that child's life. We are allowing a moment of time to ruin our own life. Do you hear what God is saying? It's all about perspective. Your labor pains is not a sign of the trouble that you're enduring. Your labor pains is a sign of the miracle that is coming. Let's take this a little bit deeper. Because I bore him in pain or sorrow, right? Or sorrow. You know what that name or that word pain or sorrow means in Hebrew? It means to be sorrowful. But this is another thing that it means. I'm sorry, not sorrowful. It means pain. Sorry. That word sorrow or pain actually means pain in Hebrew. But there's another word that actually that is attracted to that word. And it's idle. It means pain, but it also means idle. Why is that important? Because she idolized her pain. When you idolize the situations that you are going through, what does that mean? That you are more focused on the pain than you are God himself. You're more focused on what you're delivering than the deliverer. You're more focused on the here and now than the blessing that is coming. You see, why is this, again, important? Go with me to Matthew chapter 24. I'm sorry. Go to John. Let's go to John real quick. John 16. We'll come back to Matthew 24. Go to John 16. We'll just start at verse, I don't know, let's start at 16. All right. I think all this will tie in. So she named her child Jabez because she idolized the pain in her life. Now, before we move on, there's a spirit again. So when you read that little bit of scripture in the middle of the genealogies, right? Where do you see yourself in that? Do you see yourself as Jabez? Or do you see yourself as the mother? Where the blessings in your life, you're actually cursing because you're more idolized in the pain that they are causing you than the miracle that God will use in their life to birth into your life. John chapter 16. Now, again, I want to show you how the Holy Spirit works, guys. Last night when you came up, did I know what music you were going to play? Did I even know I was going to have this message this morning? So listen, when we are worshiping God during praise and worship in the morning, I really, really, really want you all to pay attention to the words that you're singing. Because I was blown away this morning. I had no idea I was bringing this. Blunt had no idea for sure I was bringing this. And when I was hearing the music that the Spirit had her pick out for us to sing this morning, I'm like, oh, Lord, you are awesome. Everything is tied by the Spirit, guys. It's nothing to do with the religion whatsoever. Again, John 16, just start at verse 16, and we'll hear what the Lord is saying. A little while, and you will not see me. And again a little while, and you will see me because I go to the Father. Now, did you hear that? We're focused on part one. We're focused on a little while, you will not see me. And that's all we see, guys. That's all we see is you won't see me anymore. And now we've given all hope, right? But because we don't follow through. What is this? And again a little while, and you will see me because I go to the Father. Verse 17. Then some of the disciples said among themselves, what is this that he says to us? A little while, and you will not see me. And again a little while, and you will see me, and because I go to the Father. They said, therefore, what is this that he says, a little while? We do not know what he is saying. You see, right there, when you don't understand what God is saying, there was a time, I don't know where it's at right now. I didn't have time to look for it. But there was a time when Jesus said, you don't understand what I'm doing right now. But there will be a time you will understand, right? I don't know where it's at. You guys look on your own time. But he says that somewhere. You don't understand what I'm saying or what I think he says, you don't understand what I am doing. But there will be a time you do understand. Right now, we don't understand what God is doing in our lives. But can I tell you, if God is doing something in our lives, he is a God of a miracle, right? There's nothing too hard nor impossible for him to do. So when he is working in your life, can I tell you, I assure you that it's going to be something amazing. Even though right now you're experiencing the birth pains, as Jay is right now, and I'll go ahead and say Michael is too. Am I right, Michael? Amen. He said pray for him too this week. But I want to share with you, though, they're experiencing birth pains right now, and sometimes it's hard for them to be able to see the miracle that's coming because of the pressure that is what they are going through right now. It's like a pressure cooker. And right now, they might not understand the things that God is doing in their lives, but can I share with you, in a couple of days, they will see the miracle to come. Now, verse 19. Now, Jesus knew... Can I tell you, God knows? We can probably stop right there. God knows, right? That they desired to ask him. And he said to them, are you inquiring among yourselves about what I said? A little while, and you will not see me. And again, a little while, and you will see me? Most assuredly, I say to you, that you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. And you will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned into joy. And doesn't that seem like that's going on in your life? Where you're suffering and everyone else is having a party? You're like, man, why is the unrighteous being blessed, God? Look at what I've done. I showed up to church every day. Lord, I've gotten in your word. I read devotions. God, I worshiped, Lord, when I didn't want to worship. I did it anyway. But yet, here's those scoundrels over here that are, they're doing blah, blah, blah. But you're sure blessing them. Where am I at in this, God? But what does he say? Again, you're only focused on the here and now. But the world, and he says, verse 20, and you will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned into joy. Because see, the scoundrels, the heathens that are not following God, that's getting blessed right now, what's about to happen in their life?
This is all they get.
This is all they get, right? And then in the end, what they really get is going to be true sorrow. See, our sorrow is lasting just for a moment. I still love the conversation that Van and I had a couple of weeks ago. This life right here is as the size of a what, brother? Grain of sand. As a grain of sand. The seashore represents the eternity that's ahead of us. And so many people are allowing that grain of sand to ruin the beach, the paradise that awaits us. Why? That doesn't make sense, but we all do. Now, verse 21. A woman... Bless you. A woman, when she is in labor, has sorrow because her hour has come. But, as soon as she has given birth to the child, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. Right now, again, with Jay, I'm using you all morning, girl. So right now, she's experiencing the sorrow, the anguish, right? But God is saying, just endure a little bit longer. Because it's going to get worse before it gets better, all right? But when that child finally comes, you're not going to, when you look at that child, you're not going to remember the anguish that you're going through. And that is exactly what God is saying to each and every one of us. Right now, it's going to get a little bit worse. We already know that. That's what the Word says. But can I tell you, when we see our redemption coming, when our redemption comes here, he says, according to his word, we're not even going to remember these anguishing times. Immediately, gone. 22, therefore, you now have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart will rejoice, and your joy no one will take from you. No one will ever be able to take the joy away from you again. And in that day, you will ask me nothing. Most assuredly I say to you, whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. Until now you have asked nothing in my name. Ask and you will receive, that your joy may be full. So what does all this mean? It means that if you're focusing on the problem at hand, that is all you're going to see in life. You will never see the miracle that God is birthing through you. Remember what a miracle is, first of all. It's something that only God can do, right? Now, how many times does a miracle get birthed through something that is already amazing? Think about this. When you have a miracle come forth in your life, you're like, only God did that. Was your life going amazingly well at the moment? Absolutely not. How many of y'all right now are asking for miracles to be birthed in your life? Let me share something with you. If you are asking God for a miracle, guess where a miracle comes from? From a horrible situation. So what are you asking for from God? Lord, allow me to receive a horrible situation so that way you can birth a miracle through it. The birth pains is not the true sign of what's coming. The birth pains for Juliana is not the sign of the child. Because if she allows it to be, then she will call that child Jabez and not Chiron. All right? But what is the sign of the troubles? What is the sign of the birth pains? And this is it. We're done. Go to Matthew 24. See, God still ties it into end times. You see how he does that? Matthew 24. So, we know what Matthew 24 is about. All right, we don't have to talk about it. We know what Matthew 24 is. What happens, though, is we look at these as events, don't we? These are the events we have to look for. Oh, come on. Listen to what God is saying to us. You need to be looking at these events. Watch for the events. I want you to jump on the news station, and I want you to be visual, because you need to be looking at all these events to take place. Is that what Jesus is saying right here? No, he's not. Listen close to what God is saying. Jesus himself. Look at verse 4. Matthew 24, verse 4, and this is the last of it. And Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Did you see what God just did right there? You're going to hear of all these wars and rumors of wars. How much stuff are you hearing right now? But you're actually not seeing it come to pass. You hear it from the enemy. You hear it from the naysayers. But is it actually coming to pass? That is called a lie, and a lie comes from the enemy. All right? See that you're not troubled is what God is. This is what God is saying. Don't look for the worst of what's going on. See that you are not troubled. That's what he is trying to get us to look at. See that you're not being troubled. Now, look at your life right now where you are. Do you see trouble in your life? God is saying, don't look at the trouble. See that you are not troubled. Look at verse 7. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, and will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Now, we're watching for these signs, aren't we? We are watching. That's what the Lord's saying. We are watching for these signs. And when we see these signs, we feel the trouble that's coming with these signs, right? Back at verse 8, this is what Jesus says. All these are the beginning of sorrows. The word sorrow in Greek is travail, which represents birth pains. So what Jesus is actually saying is, all these things that you're experiencing right now is just the beginning of birth pains. And what happens with birth pains? What's Jay going to experience this week? Are they going to get lighter and more sporadic? No. Sorry, Jay. They're going to get a lot more intense, girl. And they're going to come a lot more in frequency, are they not? They're coming. They're coming. But Jesus is saying, don't be so focused on that, right? So here he's saying, all these things you're going to see take place. Be ready for them. He's preparing everyone. Be prepared for this, right? So is this what we're focusing on? Is the birth pains representing all the trouble that's taking place here? No, because if you continue to read, what happens? Look at verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. When you're focused on verses 4 through 14, and actually all the way through 28, feeling the travail, the experiences of the birth pains, the experiences of the tribulation, that is not to be a sign of the trouble that is going on, not only in the world, but in your own personal life. What those are a sign of is what? The coming of the Son of Man. Not the trouble that you're going through. The pain that you're experiencing, according to verse 30, is the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. That is what you're supposed to be looking for, because a sign always points to something. So when the pain you're experiencing right now, do not be focused on that, because you will call the miracle afterwards Jabez. Do not call the miracle Jabez, because it's not Jabez. The miracle is something miraculous. It's beautiful. It's a blessing in your life. But Jabez's mom always looked at him as sorrowful, as pain. Don't do that. She allowed the pain she suffered for a moment to become an idol in her life and that child's life. If you are allowing the pain you're suffering through right now to be an idol, can I tell you, it will separate you from God, because at that moment you will forget what His Word says, which is faith, that you know what? You will endure. Those who endure in the end will be saved. So stop focusing on the trouble at hand, but focus on the sign that is to come. We're finished, amen? Let's pray. Father,